Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into a story that I think a lot of people living in cities will connect with. We're taking a close look at Nicolas's experience over in Buenos Aires. He went from, the daily stress of public transport, even thinking about getting a motorcycle, to using an electric scooter.
Yeah, it's a fascinating shift. And we're drawing this from a YouTube interview he did. Our mission really is to figure out the key takeaways from his journey, especially those initial problems he ran into and how it all eventually, well, changed his life for the better.
Okay, yeah, let's get into it. So it starts with that feeling so many of us know, right? The commute frustration.
Absolutely. He talks about the Subte, the Colectivo.
Yeah.
You really get a sense of the daily grind, the hell of traffic, he called it, just feeling like, another person packed into this stressful system.
It really makes you think about the toll that takes day after day.
For sure.
And he wasn't just putting up with it. He was actively looking for something else, like you said, considering a motorcycle.
Yeah, and he'd never even ridden one before. That tells you something about how fed up he must have been.
Right. It just shows that deep desire for, I guess, some control, some efficiency. Public transport just wasn't cutting it for him.
Exactly. The motorcycle idea, even with all the learning involved and the safety stuff, it represented an escape, getting away from being stuck.
Then comes that moment, March 2019. He's on the bus, probably just resigned to the slow trip, and he sees someone just glide past on an electric scooter.
And it was totally new to him. He literally didn't know they existed like that.
Wow. Imagine that contrast. He's stuck, inching along, and sees this effortless movement. Must have been a real light bulb moment.
Definitely. And it shows how fast things can change in urban mobility, doesn't it? Stuff we see all the time now was brand new just a few years back for many people.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that.
And seeing it in action, like Nicholas did, is often way more powerful than just, reading an article about it.
So, before the scooter thing, what was his transport situation? We know public transport was the main deal. Subte, Colectivo.
Right, that was the daily reality. He mentioned using taxis sometimes, too.
Okay. And the car. He had a car.
Yes, but mainly for a very specific reason. Moving his electric piano for music gigs he played at hotels.
Ah, okay. So not really for the daily commute then.
Not primarily, no. And the car itself brought its own headaches. He said it was expensive, finding parking was a constant stress, especially somewhere like Palermo.
Oh, I can imagine. Nightmare.
Yeah, and just dealing with city traffic, pedestrians, other drivers, it all just added to the anxiety.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it? The thing that's supposed to give you freedom, the car, becomes this major source of stress in the city. Sounds like he hit a wall with it.
He really did. The cost, the stress. And he told this specific story about driving around for like half an hour, just looking for parking with his piano in the car.
Ugh, 30 minutes just circling. That feeling of wasted time. Yeah, that resonates.
Definitely. And then, sort of alongside this, his work situation changed.
How so?
He started teaching more at fixed music schools, which meant he didn't need to haul his piano around to different hotels nearly as much.
Ah, okay. So the main reason for even having the car started to disappear.
Exactly. The practical need just wasn't there in the same way. Yeah. And that probably made him much more open to trying something totally different, like that scooter he'd seen.
Right. The timing was perfect in a way. The frustration peaked just as the need for the car dropped off.
Seems like it. So he decides to go for it. He dives into the scooter world.
And his first one was, what was it, a used one?
Yeah, a Fotano 2. Found it online, paid 9,000 pesos. Pretty basic machine, he said. Solid tires, smaller frame, 250-watt motor brake.
Okay, so not exactly a high-end model.
Not at all. But his first reaction was really positive. He felt this excitement like, wow, this is a new possibility.
I get that. After all that commuting pain, just having your own little vehicle, zipping around, it must have felt amazing initially.
Totally. That first taste of independent personal mobility, even if the scooter itself wasn't perfect.
Ah, but it sounds like the not perfect part became obvious pretty quickly.
Oh yeah. That initial buzz wore off fast. Those solid tires were a major issue. He said he felt every single bump, every crack in the Buenos Aires streets. It was really jarring.
Oof. Yeah, solid tires can be rough. And the battery.
That was the other big problem. Advertised at 20 kilometers range. He was lucky to get 5 or 6 blocks before it died on him.
What? Seriously? 5 or 6 blocks? That's unusable.
Pretty much. He literally got stranded multiple times. It really shows that gap you sometimes see between what's advertised and, real-world use, especially with early tech.
Definitely something for people to watch out for. And he mentioned feeling unsafe, too. because of the small wheels.
Yeah, the small solid wheels just didn't feel stable. And then there was time the battery completely gave out and you actually had to like kick the scooter along like a regular kick scooter.
No way! Kicking an electric scooter. That's,
Ah.
well, it paints a picture. Not exactly the seamless experience he was hoping for.
Not quite. It really hammers home the need to, do your homework on specs and potential downsides before you buy.
So you'd think after all that hassle, he'd be done with scooters, but he sold it.
Yep, after only 2 weeks. Got 7,700 pesos for it. He mentioned there was actually quite a bit of demand for scooters back then.
Interesting. So even with the problems, people wanted them.
Seems so. And his main takeaway, despite the bad experience, he still liked the idea, the portability, that feeling of freedom he got a glimpse of. That stuck with him.
Okay, so the concept was sound, just the execution of that first scooter was flawed.
Exactly. He wasn't giving up on the idea, just on that particular model. So he started looking for something better.
And he had his eye on another one.
Yeah, the Yadea M6 Pro. This one looked much better on paper. Bigger tires, 10-inch inflatable ones, and a stronger motor, 350 watts. It seemed like it would solve the comfort and range issues.
Inflatable tires make a huge difference, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. But then he hit another snag. Actually trying to buy the Yadea turned into a nightmare because of terrible customer service.
Ah, right. Another potential pitfall when you're dealing with newer tech or brands. The support might not be there.
Precisely. Even if the product itself is good, if buying it or getting help is a huge pain, that's a major turnoff. It affects the whole experience.
So the Yadea was out. What did he end up getting?
He went with the Xiaomi M365 Pro, which was, a much more well-known and generally well-regarded scooter at the time.
Okay, yeah, Xiaomi's a big name. What drew him to that one specifically?
Reputation for quality was a big one. Plus, it had app connectivity, supposedly good battery life, and he liked the idea of it being part of that whole Xiaomi ecosystem of products.
Right, wanting something reliable, integrated. Makes sense after the Forton experience. When did he get this one?
Late March, early April, pretty soon after selling the first one.
And was the Xiaomi smooth sailing from the start?
Well, not quite perfect. He actually had an issue with water getting in during some heavy rain, even though it had an IP54 rating.
IP54 should mean splash resistant, right? But maybe not Buenos Aires downpour resistant.
Apparently not in his case. He had to do some troubleshooting. But overall, he was way happier with the Xiaomi. The big difference was those inflatable tires. The ride quality was just leagues better.
Yeah, that comfort factor is huge for a daily ride. Less jarring, more pleasant.
Definitely.
And what about the battery range in the Xiaomi? Did it live up to the hype?
Better than the Photon for sure, but still not quite the advertised numbers. He found he was getting maybe 14, 15 kilometers in real-world use with his weight and everything.
Okay, that's more realistic, but still highlights that difference between lab tests and, well, reality.
Exactly. And he also learned not to totally trust the range estimates in the app either. He got better at just judging it himself based on his routes and how he was riding.
That makes sense. You develop a feel for your own machine.
You do. And it wasn't just the machine itself. He realized how he rode made a big difference too.
Ah,
Like consciously trying to relax his body, using his legs almost like shock absorbers over bumps, and just generally maintaining a more defensive posture. It helped smooth out the ride significantly.
that's a really interesting point. It's not just passive transport. There's technique involved in riding comfortably and safely, especially on rough city streets.
Absolutely crucial. It's an active process.
And he didn't stop there with modifications, did he? He upgraded the tires.
Yeah, later on, he decided he wanted even more comfort and stability, so he went for an upgraded 10-inch tires on his Xiaomi.
Which isn't always a straightforward swap, right?
Not at all. It was quite the project, actually. He had to order parts from overseas, figure out the installation. There were technical challenges. It showed he was really committed to getting the ride just right for him.
Wow, that's dedication, going through international shipping and DIY mechanics just for better tires.
But he said it was totally worth it.
What were the benefits?
Noticeably more stable, much better at soaking up the bumps, especially once he dialed in the tire pressure and just feeling more secure overall on the scooter.
So that extra effort really paid off in the day-to-day experience.
Seems like it transformed the handling again, making it even better suited for the city streets he was riding on.
So when you zoom out and look at the whole journey, what does Nicholas say was the big picture impact?
He describes it as a radical improvement in his quality of life. Just fundamentally better.
Wow, radical improvement. That's strong.
Yeah. The stress levels compared to public transport or driving, way down. The commute itself became enjoyable, not something to dread. And travel times were consistent, predictable.
That predictability alone is huge in a busy city. Not wondering if the bus is late or if traffic's jammed.
Exactly. That's the core of it, really.
Yeah.
How this switch in transport had such a massive positive effect on his daily well-being, his stress, his time.
And it sounds like there were other, maybe unexpected benefits too.
Yeah, he talked about rediscovering the city. Moving at a different pace, you notice things you'd miss on a bus or in a car. Architecture, little details.
That's cool. Feeling more connected to your surroundings.
Right, a greater sense of connection, maybe even ownership of his environment. He even took the scooter, folded up in its bag, on a long-distance bus trip for a vacation.
Huh. That really shows how integrated it became into his whole life, not just the commute.
Totally. It just fit. It broadened his options.
So wrapping this up, Nicholas's story, it's a really powerful example, isn't it? How what seems like a relatively small choice, switching to a scooter, can ripple outwards.
Definitely. It starts as a solution to a stressful commute, but it ends up being about freedom, connection with the city, just a better overall daily life.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about the tools we use to navigate our lives and how they shape our experience. Sometimes a seemingly minor change can unlock a whole different perspective. What's the one thing that really stands out to you from his whole experience?
For me, it's probably that profound impact on his well-being. Going from suffering the commute to actually enjoying it and feeling less stressed overall, that's huge. It underscores how much our daily journeys affect us, perhaps more than we realize. What about for you?
I think it's that element of rediscovery, finding joy and new details in a familiar city just by changing how you move through it. It makes you wonder what else we might be missing by sticking to our usual routines. Something for all of us to maybe consider, perhaps.